Start this video with another quick check-in on how October's doing. She is still awake. Hopefully you are still awake as well. Oh, she's leaving class. All right, so this next video, we're going to talk about that standard deviation because you can do it the manual way, or I'll teach you how to automate this so that we can use spreadsheets and get things done much more quickly. But it is a little bit more complicated at the start, but it saves a lot of work later. It's your choice. So let's go back and look at standard deviation. We've already talked about standard deviation. We did that in Unit 2. We found out how spread out our data was. Well, here we're doing the exact same thing. This is the same standard deviation. We're still asking how spread out is our data. Just like before, the standard deviation is still, notice, it's just the square root of the variance. Just like before. And you might say, Jason, why are there two different formulas for the standard deviation? We had the one in Unit 2 and we have this one here. Well, they're really actually the same formula. It's just that the Unit 2 one is a special case where everything has the same probability. So this is the more general formula when we have different probabilities. Okay. So again, we know how to use these formulas. We could do this manually. This says take every value that the variable can become, subtract it by its mean mu, its expected value, and then square it. And then multiply it by its probability of happening. Then add up all of those results and then take the square root of that sum. That's a lot of steps. You can do it by hand. You can follow all those steps. It's fine. It's a little tedious, and we're going to show a way of automating it. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to model this with a spreadsheet. This is where we're going to end up. All you'll have to do is type in the values here and their probabilities here. And then we're going to get our standard deviation calculated for us. So how do we do that? Let's start from scratch. So we know also, by the way, oh gosh, where's delete? So we know, let's remember that I do have these instructions written out for you. We're not going to go through the written out instructions together. These are just for your reference. Okay. What we want is a standard deviation. So we need to do each one of those things, right? First, we find all the values, subtract out their expected value, square it, multiply by the probability, add them all up, and then square root. We have to do all of those steps. And we're going to just write them graphically. So open up Google Sheets or Excel or some other spreadsheet application. There are links on Canvas to get here. Pause the video. Make sure to have this in front of you now. Don't just watch this video. You have to be filling it in as you go so you can kind of understand and then stop and ask questions where you get stuck, okay? So don't just watch it. It's not going to be very useful that way. Let's do this together. So pause the video. Take the time to actually get this out in front of you. It will be so helpful. So first, what we're going to do is, it doesn't matter where you do this. I'm just going to start at the top. All right. And let's switch over here so you can see my full window. And we're going to need to have all of our X's somewhere. So let's just call this the X column. And we can press tab or click over. And then we're going to need probabilities. We're going to start by putting our probability distribution, describing the values and their randomness. X is all the values, right? So let's go back over here. Okay, we need to find all the values. Well, we have all the values up here. 30, 36, 42, 48, and 60. So let's write all those down. Oh my gosh, I can't type today. Write out all the values and all their probabilities. What were the probabilities? 0.05, 0.2, 0.25, 0.15, and 0.35. Now, all of our probabilities, anytime we're doing probability distributions, they should always add up to 100%. So this is a good opportunity to just do a little double checking. I'm going to make a note to myself by writing sum here and see what do all these add up to. We're going to use a formula. We could add these up manually. To do a formula in Excel or Google Sheets, you type the equal sign. Now, they're pretty smart programs. Google Sheets is saying, did you want to add up all these things on top of it? And the answer is yes. So I actually could just press tab to do what it's suggesting. Or I could type it in manually using the sum function. We type an equal sign and then write sum parentheses. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click and drag. We want to highlight all the things that we want to sum. Click and drag, and then end your parentheses and press enter. And it's going to automatically add up all of these things. Behind me, you can also see in the bottom right corner, it tells you what they sum to down here too. No. Okay, microphone was in the way too. All right, so we know that we have a real probability distribution. It adds up to 1. All the probabilities are positive. They're less than 1. That adds up to 1. All these great things. So now again, think of our roadmap. Now we need to find, well, we need to subtract the mean, so we need the mean first. We can find this with a spreadsheet too. The mean is just what happens when you multiply each x by its probability and then add them up. So watch this. Let's make a third column and let's call this x times its probability. Okay. Now we'll type an equal sign. And again, the computer's pretty smart. It knows what we want to do here. Equal sign for the formula. Let's click on the x. Shift 8 to make the asterisk. That's multiplication. And then click on the p of x. Now we're multiplying the x value by its probability. We press enter. Now again, it's pretty smart, not super smart because it has an error down here. And we want to copy this formula down. So to copy this formula down, we see how our cursor changes on the bottom right. Click and drag that bottom right. And you can see that now each cell here is multiplying the x value next to it by its probability of happening. So we now are multiplying every x value by its probability and getting their answers. So our expected value is just what happens when we add up all these x's times their probabilities. We know how to do that. We just did it over here. Let's try that again. Equals for a formula. SUM, because we want to add them all up. Parentheses, click, and drag. Whoa, that number looks familiar. 47.4. That's great. That was our expected value. Let's make a note to ourselves. This is E of x. It's mu. The population mean mu. Same thing here for probability. Great. So now we're getting closer to find the variance, which we need the variance to find the standard deviation. To find the variance, we take every x value, we subtract the mean, we square it, and then multiply it by its probability. We're going to take every x value, we're going to subtract the mean, we're going to square it, and then we're going to multiply it by its probability. These boxes right here are not important for the calculations. They're just labels. They're just so that we know what we're looking at. So let's do that. We're going to type an equal sign for a formula, and we're going to basically do exactly what we did here, x times p of x, but with more complicated things. Equal sign, we're going to need parentheses. We need x. Well, let's click on x. Minus mu. Let's click on mu. Now you have to be careful here because we're going to be dragging this formula down. And we want to take, okay, this x and then this x and then this x. We want this to get dragged down, but we don't want the 47.4 to get dragged down because it's just in one place. And we always use the same mu. So press F4. F4, or you can manually type $signs in front of the letter and the number. And that's going to lock this cell. Okay. We have x minus mu. We need to square it. So shift 6 to make that caret. This squares it like that. And now we need to multiply this by its probability. What's the probability that this x happens? This value right here. Press enter. And now we have x minus mu squared times p of x, just like this. We'll drag it down just like before. Let's double check. If you click on this box up here, it highlights things. Notice that every line has that x value minus the mu, and the mu is not moving because of those dollar signs, squared, and then multiply by its probability. That's great. We needed that because if we find x minus mu squared times its probability, if we add all those up, that's the variance. Well, let's add them up. Copy equals SUM, parentheses, click and drag, all the things we want to add up, and parentheses, this is our variance. Now we're almost done. Standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. So type an equal sign, SQRT. That's the square root function. Parentheses, click on our variance. End the parentheses, press enter, and we have our standard deviation. Now it's a square root. Sometimes you might have to increase decimal places. Here we are lucky, we have an exact answer. But these buttons up here can let you choose how many you want to see. Okay, but here it's an exact answer, so it doesn't matter. Our standard deviation is 10.2. Okay. And again, the units for expected value and the units for standard deviation are always the same as the units for our random variable. Okay. Same units as x, and that's always going to be the case. So we can combine this in a sentence to say, okay, we expect, just like in unit 2, we expect the cafe to sell about 47 cups of coffee. And then we could say, you know, plus or minus about 10 cups. Okay. Or you could say, this could vary by 10 cups more or less. And that's how we can explain standard deviation. It's the expected spread of the data. Okay, it's the average distance from the mean, just like unit 2. It's the same standard deviation, slightly different looking formula. And you might say, Jason, this spreadsheet kind of took a while. Why is this spreadsheet so nice? Well, first off, Excel is just a great program to be familiar with for a lot of job applications. A lot of jobs use Excel, so it's a good tool to know, not even just for statistics, just for life. And second, we will see in the next video. So we got a little cliffhanger, all right, to keep you coming back for more statistical knowledge. And then again, before we close off this video, because that really is the end of the video, if you really like formatting things and making things look nice, you can. So like this label here, I like to make this like maybe a light orange, and then I like to center it so you can go down here. Like you can do some stuff. Maybe you can bold things. Oh, that's not the thing for bold. You can put all this in boxes and a border. Like you can clean this up, make this look a little nicer if you want, but you don't have to. Anyway, that's it. That's how you find standard deviation. I'll see you in the next video for how cool this spreadsheet really is. All right.